the African unity to shed light about the celebrations marking the 60th anniversary of the establishment of the African unity. Sir, can you shed light about the history of the organization of the African unity as we are celebrating its 60th anniversary?
The historic, circumstances which accompanied the establishment of the Organization of African Unity in 1963. At that time, there was the height of the competition between the two superpowers, the Western powers and the Soviet powers. There was a competition between them and African states in order to gain the allegiance and the support of the African independent states. At that time, there were only 32 African states were independent from colonial powers, either British or French or Portuguese. The rest of Africa was still under the yoke of the colonial powers. So the organization concentrated its efforts in order to channel the struggle against colonial powers. It established in Cairo in during the summit of 1964, the Liberation Committee, which was based in Arusha, Tanzania, through which all assistance, material, military, and political were channeled. And this has been done through many years. Till we have now in the African Union, the successor of the OAU, 55 African independent countries. And together there was some attempts, not completely fully, for economic integration. They went through the Lagos Plan of Action, which stressed the harmonization of African economic policies, but not yet African completely integration. Later on, they agreed on two integration free trade areas, but now they concentrate on the establishment of Africa as a free trade zone. It's going well. It was inaugurated in 2022. And there are some talks about now the protocols for the terms of the originals of products and competition terms and so on. The one which I would like to see more stress is the cultural harmonization and cooperation. It is still being done, but not enough as it's supposed to be.
Ambassador Haggag, as the Assistant Secretary of the Organization of the African Unity, how do you see here the role of Egypt in the organization during the past years, and to what extent did it play an important role in solving the crises and the challenges in Africa?
Egypt, from the very beginning, has been a founding member of the OAU.
Indeed.
Before the establishment of the OAU, there were some different groupings in Africa, Casablanca Group, Brazzaville Group, and so on, which have some orientation either towards the Soviet Union or the Western countries. But at that time, Africa was lucky to have very enlightened leaders, especially President Nasser, President Nkrumah, which channeled the support of different African countries in their spheres in order to shed and to cancel all the African groupings established at that time. To have a very only sole continental African Unity Group, the OU. Egypt is used Cairo to give scholarships to thousands of African students, to give support in countries afflicted by floods or droughts. And also it embarked on having Egyptian embassies all over Africa.
Yes.
And also the African countries chose Cairo as a center for their embassies, not only in Africa, but accredited to other Arab states.
Yes.
So I think Egypt is trying to do its best. It is not a very rich country, but it's using its manpower to assist African countries by sending engineers, university professors, doctors, and so on.
Yeah. Sir, how do you see Egypt's role also in establishing peace in the African continent?
Egypt is trying to help settling the conflicts which afflicted many African countries, either by conflicts over the borders, but mainly in the last 2-3 decades, the conflicts were ethnic in nature and tribal in nature, internal African countries, inside the African countries themselves, which led to more casualties and destruction of networks of roads and railway lines and so on. But Egypt hosted many meetings, especially during the apartheid time in Cairo, in order to bring the independent South Africa, and also to in the Congo and Sudan, as we do now in Sudan.
Yeah.
And I think Egypt's role is trying not to do it alone, but with the concert of other African countries in order to have the maximum effect.
Yeah. Mr. Ambassador, how do you see here the change that occurred after the Organization of the African Unity changed to the African Union here? How do you see this change, and as the former the Assistant Secretary of the Organization of the African Unity?
The African Union is trying to, together with its attempts to settle conflicts, it established the Peace and Security Council, which is a parallel to the United Nations Security Council, 15 countries, but with no permanent members as with the United Nations. And also more emphasis on the African integration and African economic cooperation. And I think it's doing well. It's still, the budget is much higher than was during the OEU. Mainly 5 African countries are bearing the majority of financial contribution, including Egypt, Nigeria, and South Africa, and Algeria.
Of course.
And but they have to make more emphasis on to push the economic integration, because if you have an economic integration, you will allow the facilitate the transfer of goods and personnel along all lines in Africa, and it will bring African peoples together, and they will find there is no need to embark on conflict policy to achieve their targets.
Of course. Mr. Ambassador, can you tell us about your experience as Assistant Secretary of the Organization of the African, as we are celebrating its 60th anniversary, and what were the most pressing issues that you did face during working there?
Can you repeat the last part of your question, please?
Yes. Tell us about your experience as Assistant Secretary of the Organization of the African Unity.
Yes, this is a post which is done on a consensus basis between African governments. Every 4 years, they choose the Secretary General of the organization, and they try to do that as a rotation among African regional groups, Southern Group, Western Group, Central African countries, East African countries, and so on. And I think it is doing on a consensus basis.
Yes.
There is some competition, but at the end they agree on a sole candidate to lead the organization. And the Secretary General is assisted by now commissioners, not Assistant Secretary General, as in the European Union.
Yes. During your work there as the Assistant Secretary General, what were the most pressing challenges and issues that you did tackle?
The challenges was trying to alert the organization of coming conflicts, because the conflicts cannot spring on a sudden or immediate occasion, but we have to have a system to alert the Secretary General of the African countries about the prospects of a conflict between country A and country B, in order to try to diffuse the situation and to avoid the conflict itself.
Yes.
Sometimes it succeeds, sometimes it fails. Once they did not succeed, they try to take some measures in order to limit the effects of such a conflict and so on.
Yeah.
So I think it is a matter which we are experiencing every year, as the United Nations itself is doing.
Yes, indeed. Sir, during his meeting with the ambassadors of Africa, Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry affirmed the importance of Africa Day as an occasion to celebrate the founders of the organization and their contribution to achieve independence, unity, development, peace, and security in the African continent. What's your take on that, and what's more could be done in order to create more cooperation and unity among the different African states?
I think the Foreign Minister was right in emphasizing these points, but we have to make more the activities of the African Union known to the African people. The African Union is doing a lot of activities which is not reported very well in radios, in television, in articles, in schools, in gatherings, meetings. So the Africa Day is an occasion where all Africa is coming together to commemorate the day when the OAU, the African people solidarity and support came to fruition. And we have to feel that Africa is going on the right direction. There are less competition among African countries. African countries is coming to support each other and during conflicts and stress times and so on.
Yes. From your point of view, Ambassador Haggag, what are still the most pressing challenges that are hindering reaching real economic integration and cooperation among the different African states? What are still the challenges here?
Not all countries are adhering to the terms of the economic integration as was supposed in the treaty establishing the African Economic Free Trade Zone. And also they are not going to slash immediately the custom duties, but on a gradual basis. There are some countries which are not economically viable as strong African countries, so they have to give a way to assist the least developed countries in Africa in order to be on the same level as strong economically African countries, as the European Union has done in the past.
Yes. Also, the foreign minister stressed during his meeting with the African ambassadors on intensifying cooperation with the international partners and finance institutions in order to bridge the finance gap for development projects in the continent and implement the agenda of 2063. What's your take on that, Mr. Ambassador?
The 2063, it seems it's far away goal, but still it's a a good guidance to African countries to look for. And we have to concentrate on infrastructure, establishing roads to connect African countries. There is an ambitious scheme to establish a road from Cairo to Cape Town in South Africa in order to facilitate the transport of goods and services, and also to be access of freedom of passage of personnel. They have to cooperate their own position vis-à-vis international policies, vis-à-vis, for instance, the Russian-Ukrainian dispute, and about disarmament, about harmonizing their educational policies and so on. There is a lot of things to be done, but I think we are going on the right direction.
Yes. Sir, as we are celebrating Africa Day, what's your dreams here, or your hopes for Africa in the coming phase?
We have a new generation now in Africa. The forefathers which established the OU has been gone. So it is upon the shoulders of the new generation we can look forward to have a strong, harmonious, supportive African organization, and also to have economic integration, because once we have integration, this means that we have interest. It will lessen the prospects of conflicts in Africa, because conflicts has been, as we have seen now in Sudan and in the Congo and Mozambique, is still dissipating the efforts of many African countries.
Yes. Finally, sir, the Foreign Ministry spokesman said that Foreign Minister Shukri pointed out that the African Day celebration is an opportunity for reiterating commitment and keenness on the continent countries to principles of unity, solidarity, and cooperation in order to achieve the African priority and aspirations. To what extent we are going to witness more cooperation on economic, social, and political levels among the different African states, as the role of the African Union should be more increasing as well?
Yes, I think these are noble ideas and goals which all African countries and all African peoples should adhere to in order to have a harmonious, because now the world only respects groupings, strong groupings, harmonious groupings, which care for the benefit of its people and adhere to a realistic approach for its problems.
Indeed, Ambassador Ahmed Haggag, Assistant Secretary of the Organization of the African Unity. Thank you so much, sir, for your precious input and for being with us today, and have a lovely day. Indeed, our dear viewers, Foreign Minister Sameh Shukri asserted that unity of the African continent countries and joint cooperation are a milestone to overcome any challenges that they are facing. Shukri's remarks came while receiving the African ambassadors accredited in Cairo on Monday as part of the celebrations marking Africa Day, which falls on the 25th of May every year. This year's celebration coincides with the 60th anniversary of the establishment of the Organization of the African Unity. As was said by the spokesman for the Foreign Ministry, Ahmed Abu Zaid, that Africa Day is the annual commemoration of the foundation of the Organization of the African Unity on the 25th of May 1963. It is celebrated in various countries on the African continent as well as around the world. During the meeting, Shukri affirmed the importance of the African Day as an occasion to celebrate founders of the organization and their contribution to achieve independence, unity, development, peace and security in the continent. The foreign minister stressed Egypt's keenness on intensifying cooperation with the international partners and the finance institution to bridge the finance gap of development projects in the continent and implement its agenda for 2063. Our dear viewers will go to a short break, and after that we'll be back, so stay tuned.
Under the auspices